Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Groves. I'm joined by my co-hosts, David Wyatt-Hupton and Matthew Merritt. Guys, London week, how you feeling?
Excited,
London,
man.
Baby.
We're ready to go.
Yeah, it's only a few days to go. It's all building up, all the events are happening, everyone's getting excited. You know, the Jets open up a UK Twitter. It's just all happening, really, really exciting times. So yeah, we're only a few days away. So how are you feeling a few days away, David, from the game?
Confident, which makes me nervous.
Yeah,
so
same
it's those two little things. Obviously, we got some good news about Ridley engaged, so we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But Falcons aren't the Falcons from 5, 6, 7 years ago. So famous last words. I'm feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it makes sense to feel confident with all the things that are coming into the week, but naturally you get nervous about that as a Jets fan. I mean, I guess as a sports fan in general, but when the other team have got everything going against them, you think, this is where we're going to slip up, isn't it, Matt?
Oh, probably, yeah. Well, firstly, on the Jets UK Twitter, congratulations to David for being one of the account's first follows. I noticed he's got good company amongst the Zach Wilsons, the Quinn and Williams accounts, and then there's little old David just tucked in there.
The seven
Little old.
I mean, the seven accounts. It was the Jets main account, Sky Sports, NFL, NFL UK, and then it was Elijah Moore, Zach, and Carl Lawson, and then David. I mean, that's pretty good company, David.
Good company. That's good company.
That's pretty cool.
The bribe worked. The bribe worked.
Oh, right. Okay.
And Norwich were the first team in the Jets video as well.
So another bribe.
Just
there.
saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I think on that one, just quickly, this video, I think Redwine tries to say Loughborough, but he says Luga Baruga, so I'm not convinced that.
Loughborough. Okay.
Luga Baruga.
If you watch it back.
I haven't watched it enough times to see that. That's hilarious. No,
but it's interesting how many times they knew, right? How do you know Wigan? Like, why did Wigan come up in there?
It must
be Thomas
Morstead
was like Wigan.
It's to do with Thomas Morstead maybe because of rugby. You know, they're quite a dominant rugby town, and Thomas Morstead being a punter. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's probably the reason why. But
someone said Bologna, so you know, education system.
Keeling Cole. That's Keeling Cole. Like,
let's have a look at that.
No, but that was not too bad. I've seen worse attempts, and they got there enough. There's enough of them to get some sort of collective knowledge of the towns around the UK. But if they gave a shout out to you guys, listeners, any of your hometowns, that's awesome. Nothing for Reading or Reading for my town. You know, I was expecting maybe a Reading, bad pronunciation, but didn't get that. So we move on from that. But yeah, on today's show, it's a pretty packed show. As you can imagine, when you're trying to make a nice show for the preview to the London game. We've got Jonathan Grella, who was the Director of Communications for the Bucks 2010 to 2013, but he's also a big Jets fan. During that time, the Bucks came to London, so we had a chat about what it's like to kind of be part of the PR team, and obviously also during a London trip as well. We also will be got the Falcons UK guys. We've got one of the guys from there jumping on, and it's really, really good chat with him. And we also be previewing the game with our kind of keys to the offense and defense before we head off and get into the weekend before the game. So before that, we'll get into a little bit of news. Okay, so for the news this week, we have big news in terms of one of the signing of one of our favourites, one of the fan favourites. John Franklin Myers gets a 4-year extension, 55 million overall, 30 million guaranteed. His 13.75 million puts him at the 15th highest defensive end in the league. So it's not bad with people obviously refreshing their deals. So actually it's a pretty good deal for the Jets. David, how are you feeling about this one?
I'm just really happy to see him get paid. I feel like, you know, he works his ass off. Like, he is a really hard worker. That whole video came out of him. He was back training 3 days after the last Jets game last year. And he's come out, he's performed, and it just sends a good message. It sends a good message. You work hard, you perform, you put the stats up, you make a difference to the team, we will look after you. And I think there's been a bit of a bogus narrative about Joe Douglas not paying anyone. And it's kind of like, he's going to pay the right people. You know, he's not going to pay Jamal Adams. And, you know, look at last night. That's looking pretty good right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and he may not pay Marcus May. He didn't in the off-season. But again, in hindsight, that's looking pretty good right now as well. In when you consider DUI and things. So I'm just really happy for JFM. I think he's had a great start to the season. When we lost Carl Lawson, he had to step up. We had to have him step up, and he's done that. So I'm looking forward to actually comfortably being able to say we will have Carl Lawson and JFM on the same team next year. That is going to be exciting.
That is, it's a really exciting prospect. I mean, kudos to Bryce Huff as well for doing what he does, but to know you've locked down JFM, and then it's just really good vibes, especially in the kind of stuff that's brewing with Marcus May, to really kind of squash that narrative while that's happening. That look, we do pay guys. This is a guy we pay good money to the people who deserve it. So no, it's really, really good. Matt, how's you feeling about the JFM signing?
Well chuffed for him. I think it is such a nice story because this is a guy who didn't win a single football game while he was in high school. His team was like 0-40 during his year. He went to a small high school and he had offers to transfer to other high schools, and he turned it down to stick with his team and kind of dragged them, and obviously it didn't quite work out there. But then it obviously has like the knock-on effect of your college recruiting. So he went to a smaller college, which obviously had a knock-on effect when it comes to the draft, and kind of being a underrated player because so much of the media talk about these big names. So it's really good to see him getting that recognition, as David said, like from his stats, from filling in from Carl Lawson, from kind of taking that big step up this season, to kind of get that national appreciation and national recognition is really good. And I think it was just a very smart move from the Jets as well. I think that price tag, as we mentioned on Monday's show, was only going to go up and up. And if you get into an off-season bidding war, another team who's desperate for an defensive end, can kind of come in and sweep in. Because he is such a dynamic player, and it's so rare to find someone who fits this system so well, who can kind of rush both inside and outside.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's just going to be such a versatile piece along this line, even once Carl Lawson comes back and sitting in along those rotations with Quinnen and Sheldon.
No, it's just an overall great signing. When that news came through, it was what we talked about on the pod last week. I would say just get it done, get the signing done, because it's just going to be harder to get him done every single week. He's going to show out. So no, absolutely fantastic news, and congratulations to him. On the negative side of the news, we've got the injury news coming through. Luckily, it's not too bad, but we do have a few people missing for the game. Adrian Colbert and Jeff Smith will be out with concussions, and Tyler Croft will be out with a back injury. So we'll see what they do with the 12 personnel packages, David.
It's time for Daniel Bryan, isn't it? It's
Kenny time, right? Come on. I don't know if he's.
I would love them to call up Kenny. I mean, Atlanta's passing defense is a bit of a problem for them, and we'll go into that later. Yeah. So I feel like there is a real opportunity for a receiving tight end there, and Tyler Croft can kind of been a bit up and down. He is the best receiving tight end that we've got. So Ryan Griffin's good for those little 5-6 yard dump offs when he's just over the middle when Zach's kind of checking it down. But if you want someone from that tight end position to stretch the field, then I feel like Kenny Yeboah is going to be a really good shout for this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that. I don't know if they've travelled with them. I don't know if the practice squad do travel with the team.
I'm not sure about that. No, it's interesting. They would have to probably maybe call them up before they travel to London. So we'll find out soon enough if that's the case. But if they haven't and they're just going with the two tight ends that they've got, it would indicate that they are going to probably shift in personnel. Just naturally, you would think that would be the case. Maybe they'll still obviously throw the two guys out there, but you would hope that if Mims is active as well, that they maybe go out with they've got more options in the wide receiver room than the tight end room. So hopefully that dictates where they go with the personnel. So we will see. But obviously that will be coming in a few days when we get the final report in terms of who's active and who's not. I think with that we'll wrap it up, and we'll head over to our interview with Jonathan Grella. Okay, so we're joined by Jonathan Grella, who was the Director of Communications for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers between 2010 and 2013, but is also a Jets fan, so and has some experience with the kind of London travel because the Bucs were traveling to London in that time. So, Jonathan, thanks for jumping on the UK podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Right, it's really, really great. I heard you on Scott Mason's feed on the Play Like a Jet podcast, which is also great. And I thought, wow, that'd be great. And then I looked at the timing of your role there, and I thought the London game. I thought I've been to the London game when the Tampa Bay Bucks came over, and I thought that's amazing. So I thought it'd be a good chat going into this game, which obviously a few days away now. We're very excited about seeing them live. So, I know you're a Jets fan as well, so this is a great tie-in. So how did you become, how and when did you become a Jets fan?
Sure. Though I live in Washington, D.C. now and for most of my adult life, and did take those 3 years to move to Tampa and have that adventure. I was born and raised in New York on Long Island, less than 10 minutes away from Hofstra University. And at 16, I was a ball boy for the New York Jets, as was a young Lane Kiffin, who was part of the coaching staff that came in the year that I was a ball boy. So that was the Bruce Coslet administration with Pete Carroll as the defensive coordinator, and Monty Kiffin as the linebackers coach, etc. So yeah, that was my upbringing. Haven't been able to shake them completely. Even with the 3-year stint in Tampa, was a season ticket holder for the Jets, and still, I think I bond with teams through losing, because of the Jets, and so hopefully there'll be a payoff sometime down the road, as we're all very emotionally invested in this team.
Absolutely, there's just hope. One of these years is going to click and we'll have something to really cheer about, especially after the last 10 years and specifically the last 2 years, which we mentioned on our podcast and probably everyone else does on their podcast very much so. So, no, very much looking for positive movement. In terms of your role with the Bucks, if you want to listen, explain to the listeners, what were the kind of general duties of your role as the director of communications with the Bucks? Yeah,
so the typical duties for a PR director for a team involve stats and transactions and just football communications, media relations, arranging interviews, facilitating open locker room, press conferences, all that kind of stuff. My role, the reason why I was recruited from the political and PR world in DC down to Tampa was they were experiencing some crises and some headwinds that seem like a real distant memory now, thankfully, for them. So I was recruited to come down there and help settle things down. And so it was a lot of crisis communications and getting a young team with a young coach, young GM, and relatively young ownership group, and get them ready for prime time. And so it was a real adventure. In my second year there, we did have a game in London, and certainly a lot of tales to tell. Not all happy.
Well, actually, maybe we'll get into that in a moment in terms of, I guess the thing about, the Jets, about PR, I guess is managing what happened with Gase the last few years and the negativity a lot, even from the jump with that hire. I mean, how much easier is it, do you think, for the team who are kind of the similar role in the building right now with the current setup of that positivity behind the new coaching staff?
Yeah, I mean, it's always easier when you're winning, or so I hear. The challenge is that you're always selling optimism to fan bases. And in the case of Jets fans, just like Bucks fans when I was there, they're very emotionally fatigued. They're jaded. They're cynical. They've been through this a million times before. And it's like teaching somebody whose heart has been broken over and over again to trust and love again. Very, very hard to do. And so we had a lot of work to do, and not to say that we were successful while I was there. Certainly, success came much later for the Bucks, but it's very, very difficult, right? Because a new regime, with a new GM, a new head coach, and a new quarterback, a new roster, really, all come in, and they're inheriting all the baggage that we as a fan base bring to the situation, and it's very, very challenging. And that's why whether it's a head coach who may have a different style, like a Belichickian style, you better have early success, or you're gonna lose the locker room very, very quickly. And so I think that's the tough part about being with the Jets right now is people want a cause for hope. But it doesn't take very much failure for the fans to walk away or throw their hands up in the air or cry in their beer again. It's a real tough deal, and that's why we don't take Mondays like these for granted.
Absolutely. I mean, you can tell. I mean, the first 3 weeks, you can see the negativity really starting to creep up, especially with that performance in Denver. And then to have this win was massive. It just changes everything, doesn't it? But you can see how quickly that kind of the criticism for Mike LaFleur and some of the other elements of the team was coming in already. So you can definitely tell the challenge that is for your kind of your contemporaries who are currently in the Jets building right now. I mean, you can imagine that they're releasing these One Jets Drives video, which obviously before the season, everyone's watching them, sharing them, getting so excited.
Yeah.
And then after a 3-game losing streak to start the season, no one's going to want to watch the next episode of it. But you still put in the effort, you put the production in, and try to sell it. And I understand, like I'm obviously selling the podcast as well. It's kind of trying to get people to listen to us. Where sometimes it's good because there's a rant, and we had rants about last week's, but it's understandable. It's a really difficult role, So it's
yes, it's much easier to show up for a party than it is for therapy, and that's really what we're looking at here. So I get it, and you mentioned Scott before, who's become a good friend.
Yeah.
He makes a very good point about, fans' expectations were not all that high. It's not like we thought we were going to make the playoffs. Just be competitive.
Yeah.
Just play some entertaining football and just give us some hope. And I think that you feel like that's not asking too much, right? Like, is 6-11 too much to ask? Like, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And to lose shootouts or, once in a while, or have the quarterback throw for 300 yards, a couple times this season. Like, that's not, I don't think that's unreasonable. But a lot of times even that is out of reach. So, it's been a tough slog for all of us.
It has been, and hopefully last night or yesterday was a kind of demonstration of the future, and there was some really promising stuff there. We obviously head to next week's game in London, which on the heels of that, we're just ecstatic. The UK fans were already excited, bit trepidatious after those first 3 games, but after yesterday, we can't wait to see it live and go to the game and really get behind them. What's in terms of the team on a week like this, with your experience with the Bucs in 2011, what's the kind of the differences? What are the challenges for a team, moving across for a game in London compared to kind of the normal week to week?
Sure. So, thesis statement: football coaches are obsessed with routine and consistency. So, night games, even the night games, primetime games that owners and fans and the media are obsessed over, are anathema to football coaches and a lot of times to players. They want Groundhog Day. They want the same day over and over again and everything to be on schedule. They're creatures of habit and believe that success is found through repetition. So the international series is disruptive toward that end. Not only due to the game being in the morning, but time zone changes and travel and midweek travel, regardless of when you go. And there are different schools of thought on when to go. And every coach has a different view on that. Usually, comes from who they've worked for before and their confidants and what they advise. But we went for a week. And the team that showed up on Thursday, the Bears, whooped us pretty soundly. So, there's really no patented formula. What can your team handle? Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to what you think your team needs. But I can't stress enough that head coaches don't love these kinds of trips, even if the owners do, and the fans do, and the media do.
Yeah, it's understandable. It really is. I mean, I guess from our perspective, especially a lot of us who haven't got the ability to travel out during when the regular season occurs, it's normally there's school involved and stuff with the kids, so you just can't get out there to New York to watch the games or the States. So it is a great celebration for us, but I'm sure it is. And you see some very wacky. We know there's been some wacky results and some substandard, football on show in front of us when we watch. I've been
injuries.
I've been to basically all the games in the last, say, 10 years or so, and so there's injuries, there's weird kind of performances, and obviously, and generally the standard is lower because you can see the teams are not quite there. So it's understandable. I guess so. From that point of view, I guess it's an advantage that we're the away team. So Atlanta are losing the home game, and we would be heading down to Atlanta anyway. So it's kind of they lose that extra.
It's
advantage.
a little bit, it's a little bit harder on them than it is from us from that perspective. And there are only certain teams. The stars have to align for you to be able to host. A London game is a lot that goes into that. You need sort of a forgiving stadium lease, and a lot of times the iconic teams don't want to give up a home game. No. And so if your stadium either has a forgiving lease or could accommodate that, you're not drawing at home. You want to build an international footprint. You are undergoing renovations, and now would be the time to go. And it seems like the formula has been that one of the teams in that boat is the home team, and then an iconic opponent usually is the away team. And your Cowboys, your Patriots, Packers, Steelers, those kinds of franchises, Bears. In this instance, I assume that the Jets find themselves there not because they've been an overperforming franchise like the ones I just mentioned, but probably because of Woody Johnson's stay in the UK and the New York media market. So a lot of times when you look at broadcast and schedule decisions, you can figure out the why, and I think that is it.
Well, there was the 5 opponents for that we're going to play at the outer division opponents for the Falcons for their home schedule, and I think the New York Jets were probably chosen for those reasons that you said, the Woody Johnson link and things like that. No, it's it's an exciting time for us, and obviously the Jets are going to have to manage it. I mean, the Jets did well in 2015 as the away team to Miami, so hopefully that continues. The home teams at that stadium recently haven't been doing too well, so hopefully in terms of other sports, so hopefully that continues as well. And we'll be making a big noise on Sunday with those JT chants as well. So, Jonathan, thanks for jumping on the pod. Before you go, do you want to kind of shout out any of the work you do for Play Like a Jet, anything else, and obviously your follow, your Twitter handle for people to follow you?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to come on and to plug. At Jonathan Grella is my personal handle, where I do all my football stuff, and have businesses and stuff too, including Jag Public Affairs. But that's boring, I'm sure, to most of you. So look me up, and I love contributing to Play Like a Jet, both on the pod, and then sometimes I'll jump in and write a piece when there's a communications or PR controversy, a mess, or something where I become what Scott calls a secret decoder ring, and figure out what's really going on. Certainly came in handy with the Jamal Adams situation, and
that was where
helping
you jumped
people
on,
understand.
Yeah,
and so hopefully we won't need me. And if you need me, then we're in trouble. I'm sort of like the emergency quarterback, I guess.
Right.
If you need me, the game's probably already lost.
Well, let's hope that we don't need you for the Marcus May situation. Let's see where that one goes.
I had the same thought. And even the Denzel Mims thing, which seems like small potatoes after a win.
Yeah.
But
when fans snaps, no, like even when he was
all run plays.
Yeah, all run plays, exactly. So we'll see what they got planned. They say we're not looking to trade him for this much in terms of what we're getting yet, right?
That's right. One thing I'll just say though, with
Yeah.
regard to him, is there was this, and as I think an analogous situation when I worked for the Bucks with a player I liked very, very much, and he was referred to by coaches in the media as a rep guy, and as a Z receiver had a lot more to learn than our X receiver. They were both rookies. Why did player X get on the field right from the jump and have success, and Z didn't see the field, didn't totally get it, didn't shine and pop right away, and so that could be what's going on here. And I know when there's not on-field success, the benefit of the doubt goes to the player, but urge people to be a little bit measured in response. A lot of times there's more to it. So there could be how Mims learns, and takes in information, processes it. That's a tougher position, and he might learn differently. So urging people to hang in there.
I hope we don't have to hear.
I hope he gets on the field too. And I hope we don't need him. We're right when we got Moore back and the other guys who shined yesterday.
They were good.
Maybe Mims won't be such a big deal.
No, absolutely. Well, look, he's a great talent in terms of his physical kind of attributes, and so we hope that he adds to that room, and that we've got such depth there, because injuries can happen, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, Hopefully we don't need him too much, but we do the rest of it. And like I said, hopefully we don't have to hear much from you this autumn, in terms of what's going on. So thank you so much for jumping on. And we'll head back to me and the guys on our preview pod. Okay, so we'd like to thank Jonathan for that. That was really great having him on. Really, really lively chat with him. Great guy, got a great experience in the league in terms of his position and what he did. I'm sure he knows some secrets there that in that Bucks organisation that he's got to hold to take to his grave. So really good. But obviously we talked about this week coming. David, how do you feel, in terms of a team coming over, the Jets coming over to the UK and transitioning? How are you feeling about that kind of after a win? Having to kind of be disrupted, even though the Atlanta Falcons are giving up a home game.
I don't necessarily buy into the narrative that much, because I think teams have done it for so long now, and Robert Saleh in particular, he's done it for a few years because he did it with the Jacksonville Jaguars, so he kind of has an inside idea about what it takes to keep you on schedule. And a flight from New York to Denver, although the time difference change obviously isn't as significant, it's still a long flight. I mean, the flight from New York to London is 5 hours, 5.5 hours now. So, it's the time difference that makes an impact. But as long as they can get them sleeping on the plane, which is, I think, what they designed to do, they give them certain things to try and help them to get to sleep as soon as they get on the plane. They wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning here, and it kind of helps their body clock just get used to it. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be, any impact. It's the same for both teams as well. So there's no excuses going to be flying around from us if the Jets don't turn up on Sunday. It's not going to be the time difference. It'll be, whatever it'll be, but it won't be that. So, I'm delighted they're coming over. I'm really excited. I can't wait to get there.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's going to have a huge impact on the Jets. They've done it for long enough now. The league wide, not just the Jets and Robert Saleh, but league wide, they know how to deal with this now. I can't remember the first time they came over, but it's been well over a decade. So, plenty of data on how to get these guys rested and ready for those Sunday games.
Yeah, I guess the point you touched on, David, about the young staff. I mean, that might be a factor as also in terms of, Jonathan talked about coaches being creatures of habit and, having that habit of coming in. Matt, do you think that the fact that it's the first year for this regime with relatively young and you would expect maybe more flexible coaches, mentally in their prep, it may not be affecting them as much as it may some coaches who are a bit more experienced and dug in?
Yeah, I think the fact that Salah's been over 3 times with Jacksonville is a great advantage for that. He's kind of been there, seen it, done it. And I think he said over those times he'd done the Monday fly out, a Wednesday fly out, and a Friday and a Thursday fly out to kind of see it. And from his experience, he felt that the Thursday was best. And I think what stands the Jets in good stead is it's this kind of, as a young squad, it's just another opportunity to show your willingness and ability to overcome adversity. Obviously, it's a change of scenery, but this is kind of what the best teams do, is they kind of string these performances together rather than looking for excuses. And I think if we can go into the bye and kind of take that forward momentum and that positivity from what was a close game against Tennessee, but kind of squeezing out the win at the end there, and kind of keep that going forward, it just keeps that momentum going. And suddenly you're going into the bye on a 2-game winning streak.
That'd be amazing.
With Cincinnati afterwards, which is a much better.
New England, right? It's New England then Cincinnati.
Is it New England then Cincinnati?
Yeah, we're up to Foxborough first, then Cincy, then the Colts. So
apologies, that's my mistake.
But I don't understand. I mean, I'm all over this because I'm looking for guests for each week, right? So I'm all over this. Don't worry about that. But it is obviously still, I don't fancy the Patriots that much. I'm not actually worried about going to Foxborough. If we play a good game, I don't think they're unbeatable up in Foxborough anymore. You know, I don't. That's not scary. Bengals, the good team. I still think they're beatable if you play a good game, and also the Colts the same. So, look, if the Jets play as well as they did last week, they've got a good shot against most teams. You know, so it really is. You know, they've got to put together on both sides of the ball and on all three sides of the ball. So it is what it is, and then that's gonna happen for both teams this week. You know, they're both feeling the effects of travelling over, and so they're on equal footing, to be honest. So hopefully the guys in green turn up and put up a good performance, and we have a good game on Sunday to watch. With that, we'll head over to our interview with Mark from Atlanta Falcons UK. Okay, so we're joined by Mark from Atlanta Falcons UK. So, Mark, thanks for joining us on the pod.
No problem. Glad to be here. Even put my green headphones on just to mark the occasion.
Oh yeah, nice little clash there. You know, getting ready for Sunday's game. That looks pretty good. No, it's going to be a big game for us. Obviously, it's very exciting that we both get to see our teams in London. It's always a great moment to see our teams, live. It's always hard to get out there during the regular season. So it's always a really good moment to see them. So big game on Sunday, big event, seeing all our friends and our kind of fellow fans in the UK. So it's really, really good weekend for us coming forward. Before we jump into any questions about the games and the team itself, how did you become a Falcons fan, and when was that?
So I've been a Falcons fan now for 4 years, I think, in total. When for my 21st birthday present, we went out to Atlanta. My dad's eldest brother is a master chef, and had like 13 restaurants in Atlanta. He'd been in Atlanta for like 30, 40 years. He's an American citizen now. Never quite heard a Geordie accent with a Atlanta twang before.
Interesting.
That was a first for everything. So I loved the city. It's bar Newcastle. It's probably my favorite place in the world. Be honest, didn't really watch much sports, and I've been out there quite a few times now. It's just one of those things. It's kind of, I don't know whether I've not been there during the season or whatever, but just never caught any American sports. And then when my daughter was young, my other half used to work on a Sunday night, so I used to watch like the Newcastle game on a Sunday afternoon, and then at 5 o'clock when that finished, obviously at 6 o'clock would roll around and the NFL would be on.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of times where I was just kind of sitting there whilst I was trying to get the little one to sleep, and it would just be on in the background. And I started watching it, and I was like, I don't really understand what's happening, but it's quite cool. And one of my mates, who's a Steelers fan, he's been a Steelers fan since the 80s, God bless him. So he's seen some ups and downs, I guess.
Yeah.
We were kind of WhatsApping, and he was just teaching me the rules as the games were on. And then it kind of got to a point where I was like, well, who am I going to support? And I had seen that the Falcons had been to the Super Bowl the year before. So I thought, oh, maybe there's a sports team that might not disappoint me like Newcastle United always does. So there was never any question. I was always going to support Atlanta.
Yeah.
And sort of, nailed my flag to the mast, as it were, and I've been unhappy ever since.
Yeah, unfortunate, isn't it? That obviously the famous score in the Super Bowl. Yeah. You guys can never live it down. It's just one of those things. And then to not be able to kind of get back to that height of that season with Shanahan moving on, and it's been a struggle. It has really been a struggle with Dan Quinn, obviously moving on last year. You move on to the new season. Arthur Smith takes over as head coach, and new regime overall with the new GM as well. And so in terms of the off season, what did you find about the off season that you liked, and kind of how's it kind of bared out in the first 4 weeks?
Well, everyone will tell you, right? I'm always the optimist, right? So I'm always the dickhead in the group chat that will come in to the group chat at the beginning of every season, full of optimism, full of hope, full of positivity. Even though if there's absolutely nothing to be positive about. But we've got a team that's got some stars on it, but really it's not cemented with a great deal of the amount of talent you need to win consistent football games. And I knew that coming into this season. What I was more excited about this season is the start of a new era with Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot. I think that a lot of Atlanta fans who I've been quite vocal about will say, well, Smith said that this team was good enough to win now. Now, if you believed him, you were quite silly in my opinion. But at the same time, I'm not going to knock him for saying that, because he's just taken over a team of 52 guys, and he needs some buy-in from those 52 guys and some belief. I like what I've heard so far. I think we've improved in every game in some way, shape or form. Don't get me wrong, defense regressed last week. But everyone, the rhetoric the week before against the Giants was, oh, well, you just beat a bad Giants team. And it's like, okay, but that bad Giants team just went and beat the Saints. Now, I'm not saying the Saints are good, which is also a nice thing to see.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, and Dean Pease said it earlier in the week as well, if everyone described it as an ugly win. Well, win's a win. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm just enjoying seeing us having a run game, which is nice, because we haven't had that in a long time, and it's meant that Matt's had to throw 50 gazillion times a game. With our bad O-line, it's not a good recipe for a QB that's still, at the top of his game, in my opinion. So, I think it's kind of one of those seasons that I'm just having to go, look, I just want to see us improve as a team. We're not going to get out the cap hell that Thomas Dimitrioff and Dan Quinn left us in until 2023. So we're either in this for the long haul to actually see a real culture change and see some better football, or we can just all sit around and moan about it, and that's just not my style, unfortunately.
No, I mean it's we're in a similar position in terms of rebuilding. I think we've had with Joe Douglas being here for a few years, obviously before before Salah and the new regime took over, he did a good job of kind of clearing a lot of the space. So we're in a lot more financial kind of flexibility. But in terms of where we are in terms of development, I think we're pretty much in a very similar, with different attributes, of course, but I think we're in a similar level right now in terms of our kind of development. So, no, I mean, you mentioned the O-line. I mean, would you say that it's kind of, I mean, there's a lot of first-round talent there as well. You've got a few first-rounders and is it 3 first-rounders, I think, former first-rounders, if I'm not mistaken, with Matthews, Lindstrom and McGreedy, is it? Yeah, so how is it looking in terms of the O-line? Do you think they're underachieving, really?
I think it's safe to say that McGarry could be a bust. Which happens, right? It happens.
Yeah.
And I'm very philosophical about this, because the thing with it is that like Lindstrom, for example, is getting better, and I mean, I think we could have he could be ready for the Pro Bowl in a year.
Mhm.
But you can't just put that line down on that one player. Obviously, we've lost Alex Mack, who was our kind of, our main centre for many, many years.
Yeah.
So that's always going to be a loss. But he was on a big contract. So what are you going to do? You're in cap hell. It's not really
Exactly.
happy, right?
But it's a big miss. The centre position can be
Yeah.
a big miss. I mean, the Jets have seen that a lot. Since we've had some great centres in the past, and since Nick Mangold retired, we've had gone from one to the next and really struggled. And you really see how important the centre position is in terms of being the anchor for the line. So Alex Mack is a good player, and definitely missing him. Yeah.
I think it's certainly one of those where you have to go, look, we've got like the rookie left guard Jalen Mayfield, who we've just taken. He's shown some good signs, some not so good, but he's been thrown into the deep end. All right, and like you guys, and a lot like the Jets. One thing that you guys really struggled to do last year, which is exactly what we struggled to do last year, was protect QB, right?
Yeah.
And I was actually one of the ones, and everyone called me an idiot, but I was one of the ones screaming for Atlanta to go and try and get Darnold if you guys were taking a QB in the draft, because I rated him all through college, and sure enough, he's balling out for Carolina, and that pains me to say even more that it's a divisional rival, right?
Yeah.
But I just like. Matt Ryan shouldn't be there, standing there at 35 years old and taking 5-6 hits, 5-6 sacks a game. It's borderline unfair on the guy, and like it's I'm trying to remain as optimistic as I can, but again, there's only so much optimism that you can have on an offensive line. When okay, yes, they're getting better, and actually you can see that they are getting better to a certain extent, because when you look at Matt's throws that he's making as the games have gone on, he's starting to get those deeper throws back a little bit.
He's getting a fraction more time each time. So yeah, I mean, it's just it's not great. But if it can improve and you just give Matt Ryan a bit of time, he's going to need it. Obviously, he hasn't got the ability to get out as some of the.
No, he's not a scrambler. No.
So you're going to have to give him time. That's the only key is he hasn't got that ability. He never really had that ability. It was never his forte anyway. Yeah. So, but he's obviously a great player. Seeing the game, sees the game so well, and can definitely pick teams apart if you give him time. So if you do give him time, and able to protect him against the Jets' defensive line, which we can get on to, in terms of we'll probably talk when I go and jump on your guys' podcast. We'll talk about the Jets' defensive line.
It's funny though, because I think this is kind of one of the reasons that I'm concerned about our game on Sunday, because I will be 100% honest. My opinion of Wilson going into the draft was that he was in a small college. He was a big fish in a very, very small pond.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's got talent, but his record against kind of like winning college teams and stuff was poor. So it's kind of like, does that translate into the NFL, right? And from some of the stuff I've seen so far, and some of those scrambles he's doing, and some of those throws he's making on the run, that's what concerns me. Because I can hold my hands up and go, look, like especially in that game against the Titans, the guy was balling. And I don't, with the greatest love and respect in the world, I don't want him to have confidence coming in. No,
but I understand from your point of view, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be an interesting matchup. How a young QB matches up against a weaker defense in the league. His first 3 games, he was against really hard defenses. Carolina are playing great, right? Playing great, and then Denver with Fangio, and obviously Belichick with the Patriots.
Yeah.
It's like that's a very difficult start for your career. He faces a slightly, a decent but pretty mediocre defense at the Titans, and you see what happens. So, again, it may just be a one-off. There may be ups and downs, but from the examples you had, he seems to be doing better against easier, he's just finding it hard against the Masters, right? Like the Master Fangio and Belichick they eat the rookie quarterbacks for dinner.
Well, you can only beat what's in front of you, right?
Exactly. So it is what it is, and like I said, we can, that's. We're kind of the Jets fans are fully behind Zach. We really are. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some people out on him in every fan base in terms of every decision, but generally, that we've kind of really bought into his work ethic, his obsessive nature, to really improve and fix what he makes the mistakes. He's very much kind of makes one mistake and doesn't make it again. From what the coaches are saying, he's just kind of an obsessive film freak who basically just is in there picking about. I mean, him being able to kind of lead Corey Davis off, and say, get out there and actually say he knows the coverage and says, look, there's space out on the down the field, get down there, pointing him open. That's stuff you don't normally see from a guy who's in his fourth game in the NFL. So it's promising. It is really promising. But we'll keep this to Falcons because our Jets fan, we all, like my listeners, know what we think about Zach. So and I said I will give you. Exactly. I'll give you
just want to sit here moaning on about the Falcons all the
time. No.
I'm going to give you guys some kudos.
On your jump, like I said, I'm happy when we talk about it on your podcast. I'll talk plenty about Zach. Don't worry. I'll be gushing about him. But in terms of players, like say for this Sunday's game, obviously, are there any kind of players that the Jets, the general NFL fans, obviously in this example, the Jets fans this week won't really know, or kind of maybe a little bit of a surprise who could kind of be a difference maker or someone that could be difficult to face up against?
Yeah, I think the kind of the main kind of surprise at the moment has been Cordarrelle Patterson. Who's not really, he's been a bit of a journeyman. He's been around. He's not, he's been kind of like running back, special teams, but never the main guy.
Yeah.
And him and Matt seem to be clicking at the moment. I mean, I think he's like, I don't know if you play fantasy, but I think he's like fourth because he's getting the runs and
he's actually second.
So second now, is it?
He's just behind Henry, who we just faced in terms of overall score, because that's the amount of touchdowns he's just getting. So it's kind of inflating the stats a bit, but he's
being used as a bit of a Swiss Army knife. So
it's interesting.
I think he's kind of probably one of the ones that people might not be familiar with. I think one of the other ones that stand out to me was our first round pick from last year, AJ Tyrell. He came from Clemson. Everyone was kind of like, I think he was kind of projected to be taken a bit lower down. We took him in the first round because that's what we do. But the guy, I think really good quality corners are like so hard to come by.
Yeah.
And as we see with kind of like Desmond Trufant, right, who we paid a ridiculous amount of money to, and then as soon as he got paid, he was awful.
Happened to us.
But yeah, so but AJ seems like, he's he's only in season 2 and he's balling. So I think in terms of that threat from the Jets of kind of those routes of hitting those seams where I imagine Corey Davis probably will be, then I think AJ is probably going to be a key player.
It's interesting, that second year leap can be pretty good for certain players, and the cornerback position is one that can be very much a struggle position at the rookie year, and then they take that leap once they've kind of had a bit of scars on them. I think he's a guy that I kind of was pretty. I rated quite well in last year's draft, and I would expect him to hopefully be a solid cornerback and do a decent job in trying to keep Corey. And then it's up to us to kind of look elsewhere if he's not available. That's up to Zach. So it's. I'm
sure we'll give you space, mate. Don't worry about it.
Well, that's good to know. That's encouraging to know. In terms of a bold prediction for the game, like a score, a touchdown, sack total, whatever you want to say. What you got for the game?
Yeah. So my predictions for this game is I think it's actually going to be really, really close. So I'm going to say there's going to be a maximum amount of 3 points in it. I think that I think where this game will be won is not necessarily who can score the most. I think it's going to be who can get those interceptions. I think that's because
turnover. Yeah.
If Matt's going to be getting more confident in throwing the ball, then the way that Ridley's playing at the moment, slightly concerning. He doesn't seem to be quite going forward with the ball. He's doing a lot of east and west rather than going for the north. So I think that to me is a little bit of a worry. But in the same breath as well, Wilson can be impulsive. So I think we had a couple of times against Washington where actually, we got the tip, but they were catchable. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's who can get like you say, those turnovers.
It's crucial.
But I think it's going to be my prediction's 33-31.
Falcons, I'm guessing.
Well, I've got to say that.
Yes, you got to. Yes, it has to. You have to. The guest always has to come on and say their team's going to win, and so then we can hold you to it. But no, absolutely. I mean, it is going to be. I think there's two teams who. It's really about kind of the turnovers, eliminating the mistakes. I think whoever plays the cleanest game is going to probably come out the victor. Because I think they're quite evenly matched. I think there's good players on both sides. There's maybe weaknesses on both sides. So I think it's a game that I'm pretty confident in terms of how they match up. But the Jets coming off quite a big victory, overtime, a 4-hour game. Then going to London, you never know these London games. Like we've seen, you said you've been to a lot of London games. Like sometimes you get the results. Sometimes they're completely different to what you normally see teams coming in.
Oh, 100%.
It's so hard to judge this game. It really is. So we'll see what happens, right? But no, absolutely.
I think it's gonna be a great game for the neutral.
Yeah, I do actually think it's going to be a good game. I think there's going to be some good stuff on show, and I think people are going to enjoy what they see on Sunday. So, so I guess I don't want to wish you too much luck for Sunday. I want you to have a good day, but I can't wish you too much enjoyment for the day. But obviously, we hope for a healthy game. No injuries, please.
Yes.
Always,
please.
every week is just please, you're just praying at this point. But Mark, thanks for jumping on. I know there won't be many Jets fans that follow the Falcon stuff, but obviously some people like to follow the different UK chapters and of all the teams. So what's give a bit of a shout out to the stuff you guys do.
I mean, the main ATL Falcons UK page is run by Carl and Danny. I am merely one of their many mouthpieces, and the boys get all manner of guests on. So they've got a lot of guys from kind of the local sports networks and stuff like that from Atlanta. I'm actually going tomorrow night for an interview with Justin Felder from Fox News.
That's cool.
Because apparently my story about my link to Atlanta is a big one. But they've got ex-pros to come on. I had a chat with Jeff Reinbold, who to me,
we know Jeff. The UK fans know Jeff Reinbold.
That was rock star for me. I was like, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
So, the boys do loads and loads of good stuff. They tweet very, very angrily.
I follow them. Like I said, I follow them for our account. Yeah. So I see a lot of passion and a lot of activity coming from that account. So it's definitely a good follow. Lads, so. It is a good follow. Like I said, it's always I do enjoy seeing. I'm an NFL fan. I love the NFL in all the facets. I'm into fantasy. I'm into all that stuff. So it's nice to follow other people, especially with the amount of passion that comes out of that account. So definitely, it's worth a follow for NFL fans generally. But yeah, Mark,
not for the faint-hearted.
No, absolutely no. But Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, it's been great. And we'll kick it back to me and the guys. Okay, so I want to thank Mark for jumping on the pod with us. That was a great guest, really good chat with him. Even though maybe his takes on Donald are a little bit too misguided, I think they probably dodged the bullet by not going for him and letting Carolina take him. That's my opinion. And as we'll see about that, how it goes forward. But anyway, thanks for that. And hopefully he can enjoy the day, but not too much, obviously, as we're facing them on Sunday. Going to our preview.
To hate
What's that, sorry?
I want him to hate the day.
You want him to
He
hate
should
the
have
day.
a horrible time on Sunday.
As the host, as I have to liaise
You're
with
too
people,
nice.
I have to be very polite with people, so I have to, but it is what it is. But let's go to our preview for this week. So, so we got the defensive and the offensive game plans. So we went with offensive last week, David, I think, and you're going to stay with the offense. But Matt, I think we'll go with the defense this week and kick off with you. What do we have to do defensively against this Falcons offense?
So the headline for what the defence needs to do is kind of just more of the same. And it's kind of what we've seen across most of the games so far this season. It's kind of a combination of this interior defensive pressure. I think Sheldon Rankins and Quinnen Williams at the moment both ranking the top 7 pass rush win rates in the league, which is so impressive. And kind of getting that kind of inward pressure is so important for how this defence is functioning. I think it's balanced really well as well by this kind of Bryce Huff and John Franklin Myers off the edge. So I think that pass needs to swarm because we're playing a quarterback who doesn't have quite as much mobility as perhaps some of the younger players in the league. I'm not going to quite lump him with like a Ben Roethlisberger who looks like he couldn't escape anything, to be honest. But I think there is definitely, if you can get after Matt Ryan, he's not going to be running away from you. And I don't think the Falcons' offensive line is that strong either. So hopefully they can have a good day.
It looks like hit and miss, yeah.
Hit and miss. And then of course that's obviously balanced with the secondary kind of locking down their men. I think it was 5 of the 7 sacks from last week's game against Tennessee. Tannehill held the ball for over 3.5 seconds, which is a ridiculous number. So that just kind of is testament to the job that these young cornerbacks and safeties are doing, kind of being really sticky with their men and keeping them on lockdown. I think the most interesting thing for the defence this week, and is that Atlanta are starting to figure out who Kyle Pitts is for their offense. I mean, at the start of the season, they were almost scared of their shiny new toy, and they were just doing very short underneath passing games. And they started last week to kind of use him more attacking down the field. And it'll be really interesting to see who the Jets use to match up on him, because the 2 main linebackers in Mosley and Quincy Williams aren't renowned for their coverage ability. They're definitely more ground and pound, big hit kind of linebackers. And then a lot of our cornerbacks, Bryce Hall, Eccles, Michael Carter, are slightly smaller bodies. And we're talking about Kyle Pitts, who's a 6'6" athlete of unprecedented proportions, really. He is. He's special.
Specimen, yeah.
So one guy who I think might be used a lot in this role, and it was a big ask for him, but it's Ashton Davis coming back. Obviously with Colbert's not playing, there is that safety spot, and this is kind of why we took Ashton Davis in the 3rd round, and hopefully he can start showing this. But I think with his former track speed kind of on the pitch, having that guy who can kind of run with Kyle Pitts and hopefully shadow him, and he's obviously going to give up a fair amount of size, but to have that speed next to him is going to be really important. So hopefully we get more of the same from the defence. I think we haven't faced a weapon like Kyle Pitts yet, so it'll definitely be interesting to see how they match up against him. But overall, it's more of the same from the defence, I think, is the headline. And hopefully, and I'm pretty sure they will, the defensive line can have a bit of a field day.
Yeah, it looks like they'll probably have a lot of success with some of those weaker spots on the line. I think with Kyle Pitts, with Ridley and Russell Gage out, that's going to be interesting in terms of, we can probably bracket him a little bit and try to kind of stop him a little bit, and get other guys to win who aren't as fancy, let them beat you. So it's, there's going to be some success, I'm sure, here or there. But I think overall, if we can get to Matt Ryan quick enough, it's going to be very difficult for them to have any consistency. David, what's your thoughts about Matt's game plan of just basically keep it the same?
Yeah, I mean, we largely this season defensively we've been pretty good, so that is probably the right thing. I think you're absolutely right about Kyle Pitts. I don't think Arthur Smith has quite worked out how to use him yet. I was reading the other day, I think it might have been the Giants game, he didn't get a single target until the 4th quarter, which when you've got a guy that size, that speed, you drafted him high in the 1st round, the fact you're not looking at him until the 4th quarter is just an absolute mystery. If that was happening in New York, we'd be burning down the bloody front office, because that's just the way they might be a bit more patient in Atlanta. But I think, I hope they don't work out how to use him effectively this week. But I can see him getting bracketed. You're absolutely right, Andres. I think he will get bracketed. He will get a little bit of double coverage. I think Ashton Davis probably is going to be the person who'll be on him quite a lot.
Yeah.
But he'll get some help. He's not. I don't think we'll put him on him one-on-one overly. He might get a little bit of a hit from the linebacker on his way through just to knock him off his stride a little bit. I think Tyrell Patterson. I mean, Tyrell Patterson has all of a sudden figured out how to catch the ball at age 30. He came in the league with incredible athleticism and became one of the best kick returners in the NFL. But he's never really done it on the offensive side of the ball. And at the minute, he's playing at kind of an all-pro level. He had 3 touchdowns last week alone. And Atlanta kind of move him around so that he will be in the backfield. He'll be the runner. He'll be the receiver at the backfield. He'll be split out wide as well. So I do think stopping Tyrell Patterson is going to be a major thing for the Jets' game plan this week. They have to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. Because
if he does get in the open field, he still has that lightning quickness. And as good as we are in a lot of facets, we're not the fastest team on defense. So, we've got some like Javelin Guidry. Hey, he's going to need to be on his mark. Some more open field tackles. I can see those coming. So I think it's going to be interesting. But Atlanta are kind of getting into their stride a little bit, aren't they? Like they started really poorly and they've slowly been getting better and better. So I'm pretty happy that Ridley's not there this week. So I feel as though
engaged,
they engaged,
yeah,
because they are slowly getting into their rhythm. So it's probably a good time to play them anyway because they've only just turned that corner. But I watched Matt Ryan against Washington and he looked really good. He looked very, very good. So we are going to have to give him the respect that he deserves after being in the league for so long.
Yeah.
But he's missing some really key targets, and Atlanta really haven't got the run game going very well, have they?
No. I mean, it's look, the way I look at it is the McNichols thing from last week. I know we looked at some of those shoves in the back, but that we're getting some success in that one way or the other, right? I guess if the referees keep on not calling that stuff, then they'll continue to have success against it. But that's a role that Cordero Patterson getting the ball compared to McNichols getting the ball is a different prospect, right? In terms of when you get a guy with the ball in his hand, so. Yeah, I think it's that's one of the issues that we've had on some like kind of longer third downs. We've struggled to kind of catch those, get those guys down when they get into open play. So hopefully, we key on it.
Jeff Ulbrich referenced that, didn't he, in his press conference? I think he was asked about it, about his third down completion. He was kind of, he was kind of said that you want to teach them to have a little bit more patience, but you don't want to take away their aggression either. So I think he was referencing Quincy Williams on that because he does play at 100 miles an hour every time, and he will over pursue at some points. But he's kind of like, you don't want to take all of that away from him. I guess it's the same conversation we have about Zach Wilson and not taking away his natural game.
Yeah.
And Williams made some great plays by being aggressive and getting to the ball carrier quickly. And I mean, he did bring, I don't know if it was Nichols, but he brought down a back after shedding a block, and it's because he reacted so quickly. So, there is a compromise there in terms of looking for that third down, especially third down action on screens, and we'll need to pay attention to it. But do you want to take his aggression away? Probably not.
No, no. And I think
you might have to live with a couple of big ones.
Yeah, you will have to. And I think I trust Ulbrich and Salah of all people to have probably the most success that anyone would be able to have out of Quincy Williams in terms of the way he came in and the way he was playing. Up to this point, if we thought given to someone who could maybe get something out of him, you would say those two are up there. So. That last week was an example of what you can. Now, he obviously has to refine a little bit, but maybe some of that comes there. And he's still, still relatively young as well, and could learn some stuff from two guys like that. So hopefully, he could be a piece that kind of helps cut all that stuff out. Those plays that are those dump offs where they get the ball in the open field and they can run for it. Maybe he's someone who could take them out. He's got the power and the speed to get there. So yeah, that's I think it's just more of this, like I said, more of the same, and just tries to improve on some of the little things that we've allowed the opponents to get away with. They've played pretty well, so there's not much to complain about. David, on the offensive side, what do you think is the game plan to attack this Atlanta D?
Well, the Atlanta D is quite an interesting one because I think it's one of those Ds where kind of the parts are better than the completion, like the complete unit. I think they've got some good. Yeah. They've got some good players. I mean, Grady Jarrett's one that comes to mind straight away. Dante Fowler's a decent player off the edge, but they're really struggling to get pressure on the quarterback. So I think they rank 30th in terms of pressure percentage in the league. So, I was listening to a few Atlanta Falcons podcasts, and they were kind of saying we're good against bad offensive lines, so we can get pressure if it's a bad offensive line, like the Giants had. They got some pressure there, but when they come up against a half decent line, they do stall a little bit. So broken record, I know, but protecting Zach is going to be absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And our line, it's not great, it's not good, it's probably very average, mainly because of kind of Van Rote in the middle, and Vera Tucker's not there in terms of pass protection yet. So I think if we can keep Zach upright and give him time to scan the field, I think we're going to get a huge amount of success against this defense, because in the back end, they're not very good. I mean, they're allowing 32 points a game. They're allowing 380-something yards per game. So this is not a shutdown defense at all. And they've got some cornerbacks that, I think it's TJ Green, who's a cornerback who's playing a lot of minutes at the minute, but he's getting beat quite regularly as well. So I think if we kind of bring back, Corey Davis, Elijah Moore's back this week, so try and get him involved in the game plan a little bit.
Yeah.
Jamison Crowder. There's a lot of people they're going to have to cover, and they don't necessarily have the players to do that. So I think protect Zach, try and get the ball down the field. I would take some shots. This is where Zach's natural ability is really going to come in handy, because they are susceptible to the passing touchdown. I think they've allowed like 8 passing touchdowns this year or something like that. They don't have a great passing defense. So if we can get Zach out of the pocket, Arthur Smith came out and said, we need to keep Zach in the pocket. And he can beat you from in the pocket, so that's absolutely fine as long as you protect him. We saw that in the fourth quarter with that throw to Keelan Cole, which was just in the bucket. He can beat you in the pocket. So if we can keep him clean in there, then that's fine. Keep him there. But I've got a feeling they'll design some rollouts for him, get him on the move. Just, that's where he does his best work. We saw that the throws he was making, unbelievable throws. Like when you watch it, just watch the flick of the wrist, and it's just ridiculous.
The all-22 just
the all-22 was better than anything, wasn't it?
The throw, the one to Keelan Cole, how he was when he was running on his way, and somehow the natural way that ball should go is sail outwards, and he kept it on a line, and you're like, that's just pure arm talent. It's amazing. It really is. He's just got this just incredible ability to get the ball down the field, and it was a joy to watch last week, and hopefully we see some of it this week and going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the keys for Atlanta to stop the Jets is for them to get off the field on third down. They're one of the worst teams in terms of getting off the field on third down. I think opponents are completing near 50% of third downs on them, which when you compare 28% is the number that the Jets are at in terms of how many third downs their opposition complete. I think if they can get off the field on third down, they will kind of cause us a few problems. But if they start allowing third down completions and staying on the field, their defense isn't good enough to rotate in their backups and keep the same standard. So if they start getting tired and, Jarrett needs to go off for a few plays and Fowler needs to go off for a few plays, then that's where Zach's going to be given a lot of time to scan the field. And I trust Corey Davis and Keelan Cole and Elijah Moore and Jamison Crowder to win their one-on-ones this week. They're not going against some of the top cornerbacks in the league. They're going against quite an average unit. They're not bad. They're not horrible cornerbacks, but they're not elite either. So I think Corey Davis is in for a big game this week. But I think also Jamison Crowder or Elijah Moore, one of those guys is going to have a big game as well. So I think you can beat him a lot of the ways. I'd love to get the running game going.
Yes, help to balance that out. Yeah,
will we be able to do it?
Yeah.
A bit of play action pass. I think Zach's really struggled with play action pass so far. 4 of his interceptions have gone play action passes. So I'd like to see them get that going effectively. So play action works effectively. Because if your running game's not working, then play action is not going to work very well, because the whole point is in play action you get the defenders to bite on the run, because it's been such an effective way to run the ball or to move the ball. So if we can't do that, then there's no reason why they bite on play action, and that's why Zach's had some issues.
Yeah.
So can we get the running game going? I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think we can get the running game going against Atlanta this week?
I think we probably get more success than we had against Tennessee. I think there'll be more of an effort to do so. But yeah, I think they're going to have to figure out ways of getting, finding ways of getting them to do so, because you need to have that balance going forward. It can't escalate where more and more gets put on Zach's shoulders just because he's able to do more. You get more confidence in him. If the running game's not working and Zach's improving, then more gets put on him. Then he ends up, games where he's throwing it for like 45 times a game. So I think it's important to get the run going. Matt, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things on the offense, and the first one is just this idea of deep shots. And I think in every game that Zach's played so far, he's almost kind of got kick-started because of that big completion. Whether it's been against in the beginning of the third quarter against Carolina when he had the long one, we kind of saw it against Tennessee last week. He kind of got that long one to Keelan Cole, and it all just started settling down for him. So I'd like to see if they can dial up that early big shot for him. I think it almost is a settler for him. It kind of gets his range in, and it seems to just give him a bit of confidence and a bit of impetus into running the offense. So I think I'm hoping that like early on we'll take those shots, and we've got the quarterback to do it, and we've got the weapons now to do it, because this is the first game really of the season where we're going to see the entire barrage of wide receivers that they wanted, and they spent free agency in the draft putting together with Corey Davis, Keelan Cole, Elijah Moore, Jamison Crowder, all going to be out there, all going to be mixing it up. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they use that, because they should on paper be able to create some really nice matchups against the Atlanta defense, and hopefully they kind of approach it creatively. And if they want to use Corey Davis as a big slot for a couple of plays, or stick Elijah Moore on the outside and let him just burn them down, or move Keelan Cole around, they should be moving these guys around to kind of create those different looks and those different kind of wrinkles in the defense. And I think that would be nice to see. I think Tyler Croft's injury will probably force them to go more that way, just to keep that pass catches on that number of pass catches on the field of play.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can kind of provide us with some new looks that we haven't seen before. I think on the run game side of things, I think Atlanta's run defence is of a pretty similar standard to where the Jets is. I think Grady Jarrett in particular is a very good run blocker. He's of one of the top 5 run stopping D tackles in the league. So if they're going to want to run on it, I think it's going to have to be that kind of outside zone scheme which they're trying to set up and trying to get away from him and kind of setting those blocks. I think it's on the verge of bubbling through. I think Michael Carter in particular, when he's got the ball, is kind of always able to make that first man miss and kind of get those 5-yarders in. Hopefully, I'm hoping that we'll see a bit more Ty Johnson running downfield as well. He was one of those players before the season where I had a lot of hope in this system, and it just hasn't quite clicked yet. For some reason, there's a tendency to try and use him as the third down back, isn't there? Which is out of the backfield, which is
you should be
kind of feels a bit backwards to me. But yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunities and ways in for the Jets to attack this Atlanta defense. I think it has the potential to be a really big game, provided that the offensive line, as we always say, holds up and gives Zach that time, and that there's kind of enough options out there for him. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think this offense is on the ascendancy. It was a rough couple of weeks, but Zach looks like he's kind of found his footing. We just kind of want to see him push on from that Tennessee game. Yeah,
I think it's really important, especially against an opponent that has the weaknesses that they do. You would like to see the next step taken, or another step of the same direction that he did last week, because the opponent's there for him. The opponent's there for all of them on that offensive side. So let's go and put up some points, and let's see what happens at the end of the game. But hopefully we should be not seeing those performances that we saw earlier in the season. We should see something close to what we saw last week. So with that, I think we'll flip over to our in-game predictions. So David, do you want to throw your one out that you think might happen in the game?
Yeah, I'm going to go with an offensive one because Matt stole my defensive one. So I'm going to go with Elijah Moore to have his breakout game. I think he's going to go for 100 yards plus. I'm going to go 4 or 5 catches. I think he's going to catch a big one. Right. I think there's going to be a 50, 60 yarder in there. I've just got a good feeling, and that's going to get him going. So I'm going to go final kind of stat line Elijah, breakout game, 5 catches, 112 yards and a touchdown. And then that'll be Elijah gone. That'll be him gone for the rest of the season. As in, he just needs this game to get going. Okay, and I firmly believe that once he has that game, then we'll see the Elijah Moore we saw in the preseason in all those clips that we're seeing from training camp of him catching ridiculous balls and that connection with Zach. I think the injury really kind of messed that up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that's why I've just got a good feeling about Elijah this weekend. So if you're I've got to get my fantasy best in. If you've got him in your fantasy team, stick him in this week. I've got a good feeling about him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good shout.
Don't blame me if then you lose.
Well, he's a good boom or bust shout. I think he's a good shout. If you're facing an opponent who's got a high ceiling on their score, maybe Elijah Moore might be someone that could help you out there. So for sure, David. Sorry, I already spoke to David. Matt, what's your prediction?
So at the moment, as it currently stands, the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets are the only teams in the NFL who haven't got an interception yet this season.
Both of them are getting one, aren't they?
No, I think so. My bold prediction is that Zach will have his first 0 interception game, nice and clean, won't turn the ball over, and that'll be paralleled by the Jets getting their first interception of the season. So the Jets are going to win the turnover battle this week, I think, and we're finally going to see maybe a Michael Carter. If I had to pick it, I'll say Michael Carter the second, running one back the other way.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Yes,
a pick six.
That's what I want to hear.
A pick six
Do you know
live.
that
Fantastic.
I'm pretty sure that Atlanta defensive backs and defenders have dropped something like 4 or 5 interception chances.
Right.
I'm sure I read that in one of the Atlanta Falcons podcasts or blogs, and that they've had about 4 or 5 chances that have hit them in the hands and have dropped it. So let's hope that continues. Well, let's hope it doesn't even hit them in the hands, but if it does, let's hope they drop it.
Yeah, let's hope for that. Let's hope we leave them as the only team without an interception after this weekend. My one's going to be on the guy that we spoke about at the beginning of the podcast, our friend JFM, John Franklin Myers. I'm going with the bold prediction that he's going to have 3 sacks this week. He's against an opponent who is struggling, and Caleb McGarry. So I'm kind of pretty bullish. It's a bit of a bullish one, but it's a bold prediction segment. And so, 3 sacks to celebrate the new deal. Pop the champagne. Let's go. Game prediction, score prediction, guys. So, David, what's your score prediction for the game?
I'm going to go with Jets 27, Falcons 17.
Right, okay.
Feeling confident.
Yeah. Matt?
I'm feeling less confident. I think it's going to be a bit of a nervier, closer one than that. I reckon the Jets will probably sneak it by a field goal, so I'll put it at 24-21.
Right, and I'm probably thinking a bit more like yourself, Matt. I'm gonna go with 17-20. Jets win. So we're sweeping the board, but I think it's based on some of the. I think it's Atlanta aren't a fantastic team here. We're still kind of, both teams are coming along, and obviously they're missing some big players. So I think that's giving me a bit of confidence going into it. So I think we'll see what happens on Sunday. But overall, it's we're finally here. We are finally at the game that we've been waiting for months now, since it was announced back in the spring. So, guys, really enjoy the game. I hope you have a great day. Enjoy all the functions that you're going to. If you're going to go and meet Nick Mangold, I don't think any of us can unfortunately go there. Matt, are you being able to get there to anything?
No, I can't. I've got a 30th on Saturday, so I might be slightly fragile on Sunday morning.
Right, it's it. So none of us can get to it, but if you get to any of these events, have a great time meeting other Jets fans, meeting some of the Jets people. That's really, really good, and hopefully we have a game that caps off the weekend in great fashion. So enjoy the game, and we'll see you after the weekend.